I forgot what I was going to say. I was making a video a little while ago to post just like this one. And at some point in the video, I realized instead of kind of pretending like I knew what I was going to say or pretending to make a point, which I did in a previous video to that, trying to make a seamless segue and feign self-confidence, I thought, well, why don't I just say openly that I forgot what I was going to say? I finished the video and I felt very good about it. And I happened to be walking somewhere, and I got a call from someone who I was supposed to have an interview with. Here's the weird thing. I'd completely forgotten about the interview, and I said as much to her. I really apologized. But I happened to be right at the place where the interview was supposed to take place, which was a weird coincidence. And I told her as much. I said, I sat down at the table with her, and I said, and I was on foot, walking like I am now, this video. And I said to her, I think this is one of the biggest coincidences that ever happened to me, that I had completely forgotten about our meeting, and yet here I was right at the location just by happenstance, so that I can come in and have it. I figured I'd just be honest about how I'd completely forgotten. It's something I really wouldn't want to have to do, but hey, look, I'm trying to reinvent my life. I want to be as open and honest as I can be. So I just completely let her know. I'd forgotten completely about the interview. And in a way, there was something redemptive about the fact that I was there. However, I needed 2 forms of ID for this, and only had one. I didn't have my Social Security card with me, so it kind of nullified some aspects of the interview. She said she'd call me back to reschedule, which I found to be very gracious, but I don't know what she was thinking. Maybe she thought I was crazy. And there's a certain liberation in letting people think I am, and that I'm incompetent too. Incompetent and crazy. Wow. Yeah. To let them. Not to hide it, but to let them. Give them that gift of letting them think whatever they're going to think. Isn't that wonderful? Yeah. Because I think if they think that about me, they're probably thinking about themselves. Otherwise, it wouldn't just pop up so naturally at my behavior. They must have been storing it for some reason. And that if I can be okay with my crazy absent-mindedness, I invite them to be as well with theirs. To be crazy, positively crazy, has been something I've always been sort of in favor of, because, well, I'm an artistic type, and I've seen a lot of crazy people making masterpieces and achieving renown. So I see immediate value in it. And also, I think that crazy, so to speak, it can go in both directions. One towards, you might say, a destructive mental breakdown, and another towards a rebuilding, a Damascene moment, an epiphany, a profound epiphany, a real breakdown of what was and a rebuilding into what better things one can be. And likewise, I guess everything has its advantages. I'd often felt ashamed of my forgetfulness, as in the case that I mentioned, and as may happen in this video, I may just forget what I was going to say. But recently, I ran into a pretty renowned therapist who spoke positively in terms of forgetting, that if one has, let's say, a maladaptive behavior, could the patient imagine that the patient is about to perform said behavior and then just sort of forgets how? Now, if that patient is one like me who has felt a lot of shame over forgetfulness, as I have, to be gifted with one's own forgetfulness repurposed into an incredibly useful tool of dissolving those maladaptive structures in us, then we're really at the point of something powerful. Actually, this reminds me of a video I wanted to do before, and I think here I have a great opportunity to segue into that topic, which I'll bring up, I'm sure, many, many times in the future. And that topic is, can we, taking all of our array of problems, health problems, mental problems, whatever the problems are, they could be just a big to-do list of things that aren't necessarily problems, but they're things that have not yet been done yet, so they can feel like problems to us. And can we let them do each other? What do I mean by that? Well, let me phrase it another way. Can we let our problems all solve each other? I don't know if you felt like I have, where you feel kind of like Atlas. The world is on your shoulders. I'm sure there are some other characters. I know Kafka was full of characters like this who scurried around feeling like they had to solve all these petty little problems, failing at it miserably. And if you've ever suffered as I have, like the world is on your shoulders, you've got to solve a number of problems, or let's say you have a number of ambitions that seem to conflict with each other, like I do. I'd like to be great as an artist in a whole lot of different ways. I'd like to be a great painter, a great composer, musician, stand-up comedian, filmmaker. It's funny, I can feel my brain get weighed down as I list all these things. It feels numbing, like they don't have a dynamic relationship to each other, where they're all helping each other out like members of a team. It's like they're all just competing with each other. And I think problems can feel that way too. In fact, that's what I experienced today. Problems that seem to compete with each other. And it may be a problem of misidentification. That is, that the list, the to-do list, is there's a sort of a uniformity to these things as you number them down the page. And so they're all sort of mistaken for each other in a sort of formal sense. That is, each line, much like the other line, containing, of course, different things to do that day, for example. But if, in a sense, they could take on very, very different shapes in relation to themselves, as you would see in a masterful painting that's composed of various parts, but all which interrelate, all which relate to each other in various ways. The sky and the woman on the ground, and let's say the fawn leaning over her, and then the peasant in the near distance looking on, maybe befuddled, and some indifferent grazing sheep behind that all. And all these things, in some way or another, they relate by contrast or by similarity. There are things that relate by a direct relationship to each other. Let's say the fawn leaning over the woman on the grass, that are definitely interacting. And then there are things that seem very, very unrelated, but by contrast make the painting more interesting. There's just different ways that composers of various kinds, literary, well, anything, any artist you can imagine, a choreographer, etc., will use diversity in a kind of a synchronous way, so that every part of the composition affects the other parts, as if they all have a life of their own. So you don't sense that it was drudgery for the painter to make this part and that part and this part and this part, but that somehow the parts, having the life of their own that any masterpiece would really have, the parts take over the job responsibilities and make dynamic livingness happen within the confines of the canvas, or in a movie or whatever. I find that interesting, that they all endow each other with a livingness. I mean, when two actors get together, sometimes a very good actor can take a less skilled or able actor and imbue life into the performance of that other actor just by their own performance. They're breathing into life into the, let's say, the otherwise wooden aspects of that other actor, and a dynamic can come about. That there's a way of taking something and giving it life, and also feeding off of its properties to inform your own performance. As long as you have your eyes on the prize, as long as you know what you're looking for is greatness, then you are always thinking in terms of how it relates to greatness. Not how it relates to disappointment, but how it relates to greatness. So, can your problems solve each other? And what would the solution look like? Okay, that's important. How'd you experience that solution? So I've learned a lot about the art making process, I think, from studying so many different kinds of it, from comedy and how comedy tends to happen and how you can turn something that's unfunny into something that's funny, or something that's not poignant into something that's poignant. I've noticed that and been very interested in things that would ordinarily seem to be completely leave you flat, emotionally flat, can be used strategically within a drama to make you cry or make you laugh, like a boring thing. Boring things can be extremely funny if they're presented properly. Same with a poignant thing. One of the most poignant, for me anyway, in the film The Last Emperor, the moment where I cried was when there was just some bland docent who was guiding people through the temple and said, this is Pyongyang Yin's gravestone. He lived from this year to that year. And that was it. And that was the end of this movie. And just the dates of his birth and death made me cry because of the context in relation to the other parts of the movie. You know, the vivid, vital life that had been lived, and it boils down to just a couple of dates on a headstone, you know. And that is understatement, and that can make you cry, and that can make you laugh, and do all kinds of things. So there's like really no part of any portion of life, I think, that doesn't have its own merits if strategically placed. And so that which could seem like a problem can be the best solution of all, including forgetfulness, including digression. So here's what I propose. I am granting us both. I, as digressor, with a wandering mind and with crazy ideas, as crazy as they may or may not seem, and you listening, that we can be free to have any experience we wish within the confines of this canvas. What do you say? Does that sound good? This is just an excuse to do it in your life. But here too, here's where we're going to designate a space to have the thoughts you'd like to have, the reactions, the digressions, the mind's wandering, to experience that which you shouldn't experience according to somebody else's rules, according to your rules, but they never really were yours once you realize it. Anyway, I'm going back into the house. I wish you a beautiful day. Take care.